Hey there, this is the fourth video in a series of videos on how to use ERPAnalytics and how to make the most of your ERPAnalytics subscription. This is a subscription that you can get from fusion5.com.au. It's a simple tool that plugs into JD Edwards and gives you some unbelievable insights into what your users are doing every day and how you may be able to improve that experience for them. We've done a couple of sessions on the home screen, real time, and the audience tabs. What we're going to do now is have a quick look at behavior, and quite specifically, we'll do a bit of behavior overview. And we did a little bit of acquisition or audience flows before. Remembering that we can choose a date range, and what we've got here is 2 months of access for this particular organization. And in 2 months, they've generated 1.6 million page loads, 870,000 unique page views, and on average, users are looking at a JD Edwards screen for approximately 1 minute. We can look at the site content, and this is overall, this is just generic information. If we were to look at page title, we can kind of tell that 4% of the use is with tenant ledger inquiries, another 4% is lease information, etc. And the login page, people are getting about 10.5% page views on that particular page. So there's some really interesting information off the top. We had a look at this in the last session to start to look at behavior flow and to try and start to understand what people are doing in JD Edwards and what screens or what journeys they are going on. And we were able to look at that on an application by application basis. What we might do is just reduce this to the last week. We'll apply the last week, and then we might once again choose App ID. So if we look for app, and we can use our custom dimensions in this. So application ID is the custom dimension for just the application name for JD Edwards. And as we said, we can see that people on the first instance are using P4310 the most and P15101. And if we only want to view the traffic from that particular segment, we can choose to do that. And then we can see what they do from P1501 and where the sessions go from there. All right. Another really important one to look at is site content and the content drill down. Again, these really help us look at page titles and looking at what people are doing, so we can see that the pages that they're going into, etc. We also have a navigation summary. And although this doesn't assist us in the JD Edwards setup at this stage, content drill down is another option where pretty much everything is going to /JDE, but if you were running MAF or data browser, or if you were running any orchestration, you'd see some more information there as well. Site speed is a great screen to go to understand a comparison of browsers. This is really interesting. So if we choose, once again, let's choose a heap of data. Let's apply a heap of data. We want to make a really good decision on this. And we want to see, okay, so over the last, since August the 1st, we've had nearly 1.4 million page views to get this sample. And we can see that on average, the page load time was 0.86 of a second. The redirection time, in terms of the average amount of time in seconds spent in redirects before fetching the page, is 0.04, which is low. DNS lookup time, less than 0.01 of a second. Server connection time is quite close. But if we look at this, the average server response time, this is quite interesting. So over 30% of the page load time is spent in the server. So they have a really quick network. The server takes 0.27 seconds, but then it's loaded on the browser in 0.86. And the download time is really quick as well. And then with these numbers, we get to see that Internet Explorer is actually the fastest browser for this site. And then we see Chrome is the second fastest. Now we can divide that by browser, by country, or by page to work out what is fast and what is slow. Everything's coming from Australia. And then we can look at the page. So we get these really cool high-level pieces of information. The page doesn't help us much, but I'll show you some other reports down the track which give you a lot more information about the pages. Speed suggestions, we're not going to be able to change much of these suggestions from a JD Edwards perspective because we're quite tightly bound in what we are able to do, but you can look at some of the speed suggestions to see if there's anything that you could change to make your end user's experience a little bit better. And so we look down and we don't see many page speed suggestions here. We can look at user timings and page timings if we wish as well. And these are here for you to navigate. And once again, these are the generic pages. This is the generic Google Analytics information. Users, we don't get any information on that, unfortunately, but you do when you use our custom reporting options, which I'm going to show you in some of the subsequent videos. And then we can see page timings. This is pretty good. So page title helps us a lot. So we can look at page title, and then we can see based on the page titles whether it's faster or slower than average. We can look at that data as a grid, or we can look at that data many different ways. So we can see the login page is generally a little bit slower than the average, and then we can work down the screen to say, well, this information is actually faster than average, but the tenant inquiry is slower than average. And we can work through those, and we can see how many page views are going on. So we've got 330, 10% of the 3.2 million page views is on the login page. And you know, could we improve that? Could we get them some time back? And we can't use custom dimensions here, but I'll show you how to do that in another session. One of the other really cool things is being able to do a map overlay, not really relevant for the current client that we're looking at. We've had a tiny bit of access from Arab Emirates, 9 page loads out of 3 million, so insignificant in the scheme of things. But that gives you some comparisons of what page load times you're getting from around the world. We could also look at server response time. We can look at the redirect time, so we can actually look at those different metrics for any performance-related data that Google Analytics is tracking.